Well, do you think you're gonna let me film, Kiki? Oh my goodness. All of the babies are here. Evie says hi. Okay, everyone's gonna have a treat, right? We're gonna have a treat and then you're gonna let Mom film? Yeah? Okay, come on. Come here. Come get your treat. Come on. Come here. Come on. Treat party. One for Kiki. One for Miss Evie. Here. Here. Kiki, make your grand appearance. You want to say hello to all of your friends? Say hi. Well, we're getting ready to film. Kiki has made his grand appearance. So if you remember him from that one video I made a few years ago about my breast cancer experience, that was the overarching, you know this friend all too well. Kiki is back and Evie is here too. I'm gonna give them some treats and hopefully they'll let me film. So, okay, let's see. Get some treats. Yeah, you want a treat? Say hello to everybody. Yeah. Can you believe this guy is almost 8 years old? Okay, treat for Kiki. Evie, do you want one, honey? Come on, Evie. Come on. Evie's gonna make her appearance too. Come on, Evie. I know Kiki already had a treat. It's Evie's turn. Evie, you want to say hello to everybody real quick? That way we get it out of the way. Huh? Oh, Kiki says more for me. Here you go, Evie. Okay, she has ran off. Kiki's had his treat. This is the treat of the day currently. All right, one more. Yes. And then we gotta do some work. Here. Yum. Okay. Well, hey there friends, welcome back. I am so grateful that you are here and that you have stopped by to hang out with us. Grab your beverage, let's get cozy. We are going to pick up where we left off. If you're new here, my name is Amanda. I am a breast cancer survivor. I'm a competitive athlete. I primarily do competitive gymnastics in the Masters division and adult gymnastics division. So if you like gymnastics content, definitely stick around. You can see my comeback story of becoming a competitive gymnast post breast cancer. And I'm also, as you know, a survivor of breast cancer, and we are going to get into this topic. You can probably see from the title, it's part of a series. This is episode 2 of that series. This particular episode is all about what happened from the moment of diagnosis and all of the appointments, the avalanche of appointments that happened once that diagnosis came in. So we're going to talk about that time into the lead up until I started treatment and how my treatment plan got put together. But I'm going to put a little disclaimer here. If you are a cancer patient or you're looking for medical advice, not here. I am not an expert. I am just sharing my personal story. That's it. There's nothing nothing that I can offer in terms of advice. I am just sharing my perspective in hopes that you feel a little less alone and kind of give you a snapshot of what things looked like in 2019 when I was initially diagnosed of cancer. Kiki's hanging out next to me. I promised them they would have their treat before I start filming. We're gonna get into it, but first I did promise Kiki and Evie they would have their evening treat. You can probably see him off in the distance over here. Evie is so funny. Kiki will accept treats, like if you hand them to him, he will take them. Evie likes them to go on the floor first. She likes the seasoning of the floor, I guess. I don't know. But I'm gonna grab a drink myself and we're gonna get started. Got my cup, my owl mug. I'm just having some water right now. I was gonna have a coffee with you all, but I really don't need more caffeine in my system, so hope you don't mind, just water. But let's get going. So if you watched the last episode of what my life looked like leading up to my diagnosis, you'll know that it was a complete shock. It was not what I had thought would be in the cards through my life, given that I was a gymnast I ran marathons. I was athletic. I'm vegan. I do all the things you're supposed to do, and I still got diagnosed. So that right there is something very important, you guys. Breast cancer does not discriminate. So you can be the healthiest that you have ever been, and you can still get that diagnosis. Now, I don't say that to be doom and gloom. I just say that because that is the reality. 1 in 8 women in the United States, I don't know what the statistics are worldwide, but a lot of the research out here in the United States say that 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be diagnosed with breast cancer. So I know plenty of women that are fitter than I am, and they've been diagnosed. So it doesn't discriminate. So always make sure you are checking yourself, you are following up on your screenings, you're following medical advice, and it's just so important. Age is just a number. It can happen. I was 32, as you may recall. But yeah, let's get into it. So where I left you guys last episode, I was visiting my parents in Northern California. I'm from Northern California. I was up there visiting them. That's when the call came in, got the diagnosis. Of course, it's always Friday night at 5 p.m. So I really just had this whole weekend to be like, just in grief and processing with my parents and with my best friend and my friend group. Like, what the heck just happened? Like, how is that possible? I was like the last person people thought that would happen to, and I was in charge of my parents' care, so I still had to go to those meetings. I had to go, I think it was like a comfort care, palliative care. It was like the pre-stage before hospice. I had to go to a meeting with my dad and help kind of know that he was in the right path of things with his treatment. He was an end-stage renal failure. He would later pass a few months later, unfortunately. But it was this whole thing, like, I gotta take care of my parents, but I gotta take care of myself. Like, what about Kiki? Kiki, like, he wasn't even a year old yet. Like, it was just so crazy. Yeah, you were not even a year old, Kiki. You can hear him, he's got some thoughts about that all. So let's get into it. So fast forward, I fly home March 25th, and I have to go back to work on Tuesday the 26th of March. Go back to work, and you know, of course, my then significant other, now ex, they knew like what was going on. And oh, you guys might get some zoomy cat action, so we'll see what happens. I went to a therapy appointment to try to process and like collect myself and everything, and that person just ended up not being a good fit because the topic of breast cancer made him very uncomfortable, I could tell. And I'm like, well, this is my reality right now. I need someone who can talk with me about this. Like, I'm not trying to be inappropriate, but like, I've got some big decisions I've got to make, you know, and I don't know. And so that's when like this whole onslaught of appointments began. I was slowly letting my family know, and of course, like, we can do a whole nother video if you want on how I broke the news to different family members and kind of the process I went and the decision I grappled with of whether I was going to remain private and deal with it private, which at that time, that was the plan. I had no intention of ever sharing this with anybody. I thought it was something I could like keep to myself, and I quickly realized this was a situation far larger than myself, and I would need support, even though I definitely needed more support than I did get. I am grateful for the support I did get, but I needed more, but we can get into that at some other point. But it was tough and scary because at 32, I thought my life was still just beginning. You know, I thought I'd be getting married soon. I thought I was going to start a family. I was trying to finish up a PhD. That didn't get to finish because of cancer. So I went into you know, I took out student loans to pay for a doctorate degree that I won't have now because, thank you, cancer. There's just so many things that transpired, but we can do a whole nother video on that. So anyway, so before you go in, one of the things they make you do is you have to go see a cardiologist. You have to do like, I think like an EKG. I know at some point I have to go in and do like an echocardiogram. Like they have to check your heart health, especially because my mother had a massive heart attack and she would end up passing a couple of years, or she passed last year. She passed last year from a massive heart, not a massive, she had a massive heart attack. Years prior, lived many more years, and then ended up ultimately passing from another heart attack. So yeah, I've lost both my parents, but anyway, we had to make sure that my heart was able to withstand surgery going under anesthesia. I can never say that word right. I had to go under that, so I had to go in and do my cardiology, and then I met with my surgeon, and I still go see her to this day for my annual appointments. She is the best. She saved my life. She was the only one that really kind of reassured me that things would be okay, that it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, but we will get through this. And that's when I found out more about my diagnosis. It was actually a little bit worse than what, or a lot worse than what the person on the phone told me a week prior. And she was shocked that they had intercepted, because she was the one that was supposed to break me of the news. It was invasive ductal carcinoma, so it was stage 2B, and it was poorly differentiated. It was estrogen positive, so ER positive for me, and that's kind of the diagnosis. And so her plan was like, I needed to talk to an oncologist because there had to be a decision made. I would have to go through chemotherapy, which that rocked my world. I had to make the decision of chemotherapy, surgery, which one was going to be first. The two doctors were going to need to discuss things together, have a plan, and then move forward. Radiation would probably be on the table, which it did end up being, and that was just something that they had to kind of work out together. But it gets interesting. So I remember doing that. I went to Michelle's place after that, which is our local cancer resource center, connected with them at direction of my surgeon. If you are in Southern California and you need a breast surgeon, I highly recommend Dr. Bremner. She saved my life. She is the best. She is a great human being, and highly recommend. She is fantastic and listened to everything that I had questions about and answered them to the best of her ability. And she was truly one of the very few people that reassured me that we could get through this. So anyway, so it's crazy because like your whole life changes, especially learning, okay, it's not just a surgery, it's chemo. What's that gonna look like? Who knows? It was just crazy. I was having to tell family, and once I knew more about it, I was like, wow, I've got to tell more people. So now keep in mind, the lump was found February 26th, diagnosis March 22nd, and now we're into April 1st. So we are now almost a week and a half later. I go see the oncologist for the first time, and this was the most traumatizing medical appointment I think I've ever gone to. The doctor that I went to, she was incredibly late to my appointment, and when she got into the appointment with me, she hadn't even looked over anything, to my knowledge. She hadn't looked over anything, and I remember her telling me, this is very bad, this is very bad. That's what she said many times, this is very, very bad. And then she was like, did you eat a lot of soy? Did you do a lot of this? Did you do this? And like, it was like, felt like focus on trying to blame me instead of like, what's the solution? What are we gonna do? What's the game plan? Are you gonna talk to my surgeon? What are we gonna do? Like, get this out of my body. Let's go. Let's do something. And she wasn't gonna do anything. She just said, you need to read the manual on breast cancer, because she had saw that my surgeon had given me some documents about breast cancer so I could learn a little bit more about my specific diagnosis and kind of things to expect from treatment. But she told me she couldn't talk to me or do anything until I read the manual. And then she said, I'll see you in a month. You're gonna see me in a month? We're not doing anything? And that was horrifying. Like, she basically gave me a death sentence, I felt like, because she wasn't willing to do anything, it felt like. And I needed to know, like, my surgeon wanted to know, like, what's the best plan of action. That was crazy. And then I had to immediately go into an appointment with my primary doctor at the time, so they were looped in on everything because they wanted to see me right away. And they wanted to order some different stuff too, so we had everything put together. So a couple days go by. I have to go in for like some dental work because I had some teeth that needed serious attention, and I had been advised that any bacteria could get into my bloodstream and potentially kill me. So if I have an infection or if I had like a cavity, it needed to be addressed. So I had to do some dental work. And then the crazy thing happened when they were checking out my mouth. I had a spot in my mouth, and then they're like, you need to get that biopsied. So with all this going on and having to have a biopsy in my mouth, which it just ended up being like staining from like a filling I had years ago. I guess like if you have like an aluminum or whatever material it is, it can make a stain on your gum or something. And so I had to like get that biopsied, which that was not a fun experience. Yeah, I had to go in. I went in for genetic testing, and I had to like kind of get like a mapping done with my surgeon, a little bit of what the options kind of were. And I had to go do a breast MRI. Those are not very fun, but definitely very necessary if you have breast cancer or there's a concern of a spot in your breast. I went in for that so they could get kind of like a further view of the scope of the problem. And that was that whole week. And then there was just a lot more waiting. With this diagnosis happening, I was letting my clients know that my availability was going to be shifting dramatically. I would work when I could, but I just didn't know what that was going to look like. So there was a possibility that I would be having to cancel things. And this was hard for me because I'm a person of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I will do it. And I just ended up having to cancel things. Of course, they knew things. All of them knew what was going on. They understood. They wanted what was best for me. And it was challenging because like I don't want to let anybody down. And it was quite the thing, you know, to have to do that. That's been like the only other time I've canceled on somebody was when my mom died, and I told people I could still come, but I gave them the option if they didn't want me to come because I was crying, you know. And the other time I got a concussion and was being taken to the hospital. So but yeah, I stick to my word. I do what I'm supposed to do, and having to cancel, that was hard. So, but they understood. At that point, I kind of blocked off my schedule so new clients couldn't reach out to me. It was kind of like, and this is when things started getting really tough financially because I was losing work. I still have bills I have to pay, you know. I still have to buy groceries and pay for utilities, you know. I still had to like make a life for myself. I didn't have PTO. I own my own business, so if I don't work, I don't get paid. So that became this whole challenging thing. But yeah, I had to go in, and then they needed to check where all the disease was. So now we're almost, how many weeks out? We are so many weeks out. So that's 1, 2, 3. 3 weeks out. 3 weeks out from diagnosis, I meet with my new oncologist. And that first one just was not the right fit for me. This one I only had for a short time. The place I went to had a very much interesting situation where the oncologists were just like revolving doors, and I think that was very detrimental to my treatment, in my personal opinion. It would have been nice to have continuity of care, but I did not have that. But this person who was my doctor for the hard part of it, she was great, and she communicated with my surgeon. They had a game plan, and they decided that I would have to have chemotherapy first. And she ordered all the things that I would need done. I would have to have a port placed. She ordered, I believe I had a brain MRI scheduled. I'm not sure which doctor scheduled that, but they wanted to kind of rule things out there just to make sure there was no signs of metastatic disease. I would have to do a CT scan. So let's see how that looks. So we're now at April 11th. Okay, remember I got diagnosed on the 22nd. It's April 11th. I meet my new oncologist. She's great. The next morning I go in for a brain MRI. I have more dental work done. And then we're now into the next week in April. I had to go in for some blood work on the 17th because they wanted a full panel of everything. I had to go do a CT scan on the 17th just to make sure that there was no spread of disease to any like organs that were nearby. I had to go in on that Friday to do an echocardiogram. So now we are like, I think we're about 4 weeks out. No, even more. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks from diagnosis. I'm getting an echocardiogram done. And it's just a lot. No, 4 weeks out, not 5. 4 weeks out, I had to do all of that. Then I had to go see other doctors. Oh, Kiki's gonna make an appearance. Are you gonna help tell the story? Because you were part of it. You helped. You were a very good helper. This little guy, he stayed with me the whole time. He took care of me. Yeah, it's a good boy, Keekster. Okay, he's back to napping. But I had to go see a neurologist. I had to meet with a fertility doctor because at 32 I had to talk about or figure out, could I freeze my eggs? Because chemotherapy could make me infertile. And then I found out my insurance didn't cover that, and it was going to be like between $10,000 and $20,000 to preserve my eggs. And I didn't have money for that. Like, I had some savings at that time, but it was quickly dwindling because I'm hardly working. I'm trying to work when I can between all these appointments. I'm trying to work as much as I can, but like in the lead up, like this week in particular, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I had 10 doctor appointments in 1 week. Like, it became a full-time job. And then I had my port put in. That was the first surgery I have ever had. I have never had surgery before. Had that done on April 23rd. And then it was another appointment at oncology. You know, I went up that weekend to say goodbye to my parents because I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, you get told you have cancer, and I just didn't know. I just didn't know if I'd be able to ever see them again. I mean, it was just crazy times. I went and saw them and had to go to another meeting for my dad. I had a root canal while I was up there, and then I did like, I had more time because I'm looking at my schedule and more blood work, more doctor appointments. My chemo got delayed a week, and then it happened. May 17th of 2019, I began the first of 16 rounds of chemotherapy. So that's a pretty long wait. That's like almost 2 months from diagnosis right there. So let's look. The lump was found. So we're 1, 2, wait. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 weeks from when the lump was found to when I started treatment. 11 weeks. 11 weeks of appointments. And the diagnosis, well, it's a little bit less time, right? That's the 22nd. So if we go from that day, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 weeks, so 2 months. 2 entire months of appointments before going through chemotherapy. 2 months. That's a long time. And meanwhile, this cancer is growing in my body. And from when it was found, it was like 1.83 centimeters. It was over 5 inches by the time I started chemotherapy 2 months later. So there was definitely a lot of delays, a lot of having to wait for things to find out like what the next steps were. But in that time frame, 2 weeks of appointments, or 2 months of appointments. So I'm going to tally up how many medical appointments I had. So let me count that. I won't make you wait. Let me count that. From the call that I had breast cancer until the date I started chemotherapy, I had 41 medical related appointments over 2 months. 41. You can probably understand why I'm broke. 41 appointments. And to be fair, like, I had other medical stuff going on in addition, so that's probably why mine were a little bit more, because they had to check everything out. But yeah, and leading up to that first day of chemotherapy on the 17th of May, I had spent that weekend doing, I remember it was like my last normal weekend of life. Let's talk about what I did that last weekend. So I was home. I worked a little bit that evening, that weekend, trying to just get in a little bit more work because I knew I may not be able to work for a while, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to minimize like savings loss, the credit card debt, the loan taking out, because I just didn't know what that was going to look like. Part of me thought I was going to handle things just fine, you know, and I would be able to get through chemotherapy. It wasn't going to be an issue, but it did, and we'll talk about that in the next series. But that weekend before, I spent it at the Gentle Barn. I went to pet all the animals and hug the cows, and it's a real special place. Highly recommend if you're ever in the Santa Clarita area, go check them out. For many years I used to sponsor some of their animals. I used to sponsor Peggy the chicken, so I got to meet her, so I got to have a picture with her holding her, and I got to meet Hero the horse, who I used to sponsor. Unfortunately, like, I couldn't do that much longer because, you know, every like extra expense I had to like chop all those out, because I had to just focus on the basic essentials to get through this time, and we're still kind of dealing with that. But that is what it looked like. So that's a long period of time from diagnosis to starting chemo. So remember those dates. It was March 26th, February, March 26th, they found the lump. March 22nd, they told me I had cancer. May 17th is when I started chemo. And as much as chemo sucked, there was this relief knowing we're finally doing something. So yeah, that's crazy, right? So thank you so much for tuning in. I know these episodes are a little bit longer, but I thought, you know, it would be nice to kind of walk you through it, because I was still working up until the day before chemo. I still went to work and went to my, you know, my oncology appointments. I did all the things. I You know, I was still trying to do what I could to save up as much money as possible before everything changed. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. So thank you so much for being here, your support, and hanging out with me. Honestly, guys, it truly means so much. I am having a great time just hanging out with you guys and sharing my experience. It's taken a long time to get to this point to be able to share. I know I promised you guys a long time ago, but honestly, guys, I just wasn't ready. I just was not ready to share it. A lot of us that have gone through breast cancer, we have a bit of like PTSD, and I have had to wait until I was in a good place to really be able to talk about it. So stay tuned for the next episode. We are going to talk about the chemotherapy portion of it, maybe the surgery, maybe the radiation, but we'll talk about at least the chemotherapy part in the next episode. So like, subscribe, share, do all the things. If you made it this far, in the comments below, tell me, what is the best thing that has happened to you today? I want to know all the good news, all the good things, all the happy things, and just share, because I know this is kind of a hard topic, but hopefully in sharing, someone else who might be going through similar feels a little bit less alone. Everyone's going to be different again, of course. You know, everyone has a different version of their story, right? So everyone has a whole different path. Some people, their treatment is really quick. Mine just kind of drug out, and that's just how it was here in 2019 in the United States. That's kind of what I went through. So I'm gonna leave you guys here, and thank you so much for being here. Kiki, do you want to say goodbye? Oh, did you hear him? Come here, come here. He's gonna come say goodbye. Yeah, Kiki says goodbye. Oh, he really says goodbye. Bye, guys.